What is biblical masculinity? That's what we're talking about today on the To Be the Church podcast. Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it looks like to truly be the church in today's culture. I'm Tyler, who was apparently fired last week on the podcast, I found out.
What?
I watched the first minute of the podcast where I was like, they're like, Tyler got fired. And I was like, okay, whatever, it's turned it off. So I have no idea what you and Ben talked about last week, but
Oh, dude.
but someone on YouTube said, great topic. And I was like, oh, hopefully it wasn't about me getting fired for 25 minutes.
No, I can't remember. I don't remember saying that. I said it?
I don't know. It was you or Ben.
Yeah.
One of you.
I blame myself, but mostly Ben.
How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was good, man. I had some extra time off. I didn't preach Christmas Eve, which was surprising, I think, to a few people. But first time in years I haven't preached a Christmas Eve. But yeah, I was here and it was a part of the gathering as with my family. But yeah, I didn't preach it this year. So yeah, I got some time off with my family over the holidays, which was really healthy and good. And then, yeah, dude, what about you? You did some traveling back east. That's why you weren't here last week. You weren't fired.
No. I was in North Carolina, hanging out with my wife's family. It was fun. Yep. Here through Christmas Eve and left Christmas Day, and spent 11 days. Yep. It felt, weather-wise, it was pretty much the same as here. Just a little chilly, not bad. But yeah, hanging out. With all the cousins, there's 12 kids. And so that was us for 10 days, just trying to keep kids happy.
Yeah, dude, it can get crazy at that age with so many different kids.
Yeah. Okay. So Cody had a question. We were talking about what to talk about. Cody. Yep. So we should have thought this through, Cody, and just given you a microphone and let you ask it yourself. But essentially, this idea, there's a lot of like back and forth about the idea of masculinity, and there's from one side trying to either, I don't even know if I'd say demasculinize or like
emasculate.
That's a better word for it. Emasculate, like the idea, the whole idea of masculinity. There's a portion of people who want to do away with it completely. There's another side that is like really pushing for this idea of like bringing back masculinity. Even just a couple names that were mentioned before: Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate. A lot of influencers who can get a lot of clicks by talking, just by posting things. And so the question was like, where is biblical masculinity?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and keeping in mind, even you mentioned Peterson and Tate, and they're very different dudes. Tate is really he's a 37-year-old American British kind of businessman, former professional kickboxer, and is really, really kind of a real chauvinist type guy. Whereas not Andrew Peterson. I almost said Andrew Peterson. Whereas Jordan,
is he worthy?
Whereas Jordan Peterson is I don't know, he's probably in his 60s, Canadian psychologist and best-selling author, and so they're definitely not similar in terms of their things. So Tate is more of kind of this sort of social media influencer type, whereas Peterson's a scholar and has kind of written a lot of books and those kind of deals. And so, so there's the big thing, and you see this in advertising. Toxic masculinity has been a big topic over the last, 5 to 7 years. And yet there's this, and I think Peterson's probably his work the last 15 years. I don't know when the 10 Rules for Life thing came out, but 15 years ago, it feels like. But he's one who started talking about and sort of publishing in his books he's 61 years old and become a pretty sought after speaker over the years and all sorts of stuff. So, but he's one who started kind of seeing a crisis in masculinity and for men, boys and men in Western culture, and has sort of been addressing that for years. And then you see it within the church as well. You see, and there's political lines that this is drawn among as well, but you see I see a bunch of guys who are, we even mentioned like back when Driscoll was big, like in the 90s and early 2000s, he was really into sort of the biblical manhood stuff. And Eric Mason wrote a book on biblical manhood. And I mean, you think about even the trajectory of Mason versus the trajectory of Driscoll over the years. And so there's dudes that have been writing about this for decades, and it's been a topic for sure. But the question is, what is biblical manhood? What is manhood? What is biblical manhood? And what are we to make of this in a world where there is certainly a sexual ethics, which is sort of the broader area on this, but specifically like male and female, right? And the identity of male and female, and the binary and differentiation of male and female, in a world where that's like not only being called into question, but actually like in wider culture, there's just so much confusion on it and fog related to it. What is manhood, and what is masculinity, and what does the scripture say about that for men, and how should a young man in this day and age respond to these moments in the culture, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Tyler? You said before we started recording that there is a lot of stuff in traditional, you use the word traditional masculinity, probably stereotypes maybe you're speaking to or whatever, that you don't think is truly manhood things. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm referring to about 6 months ago, a buddy of mine was like, he posted something where he was like, he posted an audio clip of a prominent teacher, and he said, like, I will never listen to a Bible teacher that sounds this effeminate.
Okay.
And it was like a male who is a male who identifies as a male as well, like, and is a like a traditional Christian, but just because his voice was in my buddy's mind too effeminate, he's like, I'm out. Yeah. And I think I see that a lot, where it's like, you mentioned a Paul Tripp thing. I just looked that up. There's a picture of Paul Tripp. Maybe we can put it on the screen. And the tweet is, John the Baptist did not dress in effeminate, soft clothing. Such cannot be said about big evangelicalism's leaders.
Yeah.
And it's like, that to me is so ridiculous. It's like, because a guy like Paul Tripp is wearing his trendy mustache and a scarf and a cardigan, like he's all of a sudden not masculine.
Sure.
And it's like, listen to Paul Tripp's teaching on parenting. Yeah. Listen to Paul Tripp's teaching on marriage. That's about the most masculine dude around, like, in my opinion.
Okay, so define what that means.
Yeah, I mean, the person who cares well for his family, that leads his family, leads his children, points them to the gospel, like that, like those are the elements of masculinity that's like, that I would look at, like, not fashion sense. Right. Okay. And I think that, like, a lot of times when people have this conversation, in this tweet is talking about fashion sense.
Sure.
Like, he may have worn this scarf on his way to write like another book on how to parent in light of the gospel, which, I mean, I will read Paul Tripp parenting books all day, and so I don't know. I think it's just annoying to me. That's like, people are like, oh, look at this. And it's definitely like the worst side of judging a book by its cover.
Okay.
In the same way where there's a pastor in downtown Vancouver who was the singer of a metal band for years, and brilliant dude. I've read a couple of his books. I really like him, but a lot of people would look at him and be like, that like gothic look or whatever. It's not feminine, but it's like he wears all black and like dresses in a way that's like, oh, I could never learn from him, and when in reality he has more degrees than most of us. And, and so that idea of just judging a book by its cover, I feel like that is 75% of the tweets I see or posts I see in that arena is just that.
Yeah. Related to the issue. Yeah. Yeah. So the image of it, and maybe it's built on these stereotypes that come from a specific image in American culture or in Western culture, and so that okay. So and the term effeminate is actually in 1 Corinthians 6, verses 9 and 10. This is the King James. Do not be deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor the effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, etc., will inherit the kingdom of God. And so that's where that idea of like effeminate is coming into, and some guys in the self-proclaiming or self-identifying Christians saying, men shouldn't be effeminate or whatever. And so the question is, and so Tyler, when you were getting into that there about like things that are truly masculine or truly like reflective of what men are created to be, you brought up like family, caring for one's family, leading it, caring for it, protecting it, all those sorts of things, children, raising children. So and you're probably thinking of Ephesians 5 type stuff, I'm guessing, not to put words in your mouth, but like where would we look in Scripture to, and I'm not just asking you this question, I'm just saying this question, and this is the way, we're here to try to equip the church to be the church. So in a world of, a guy like Andrew Tate would be like what I'd call kind of like a fog machine. In a world of like fog machines who are blowing smoke about what it means to be a man or what masculinity is, how are we as Christians supposed to think about this biblically and then respond accordingly? And just to continue to kind of riff on that theme myself here, you look within Scripture and Adam is created, right? And Adam is created first and then Eve is created. And when Adam is created, he's put in the garden to work it and to keep it, right? That's his job description. He's supposed to work the garden and keep the garden, protect it, guide it. In that sense, he's supposed to obey the Lord, right? And keep that agreement with the Lord. You should not eat of any of the fruit, or you could eat any of the fruit in the garden, but not in the midst of the garden. He's given all those instructions before Eve's even created, according to Genesis 2. So he has this vocation. He's called to do this. And then Eve is created. Woman is created. She comes out of man. Matthew Henry, in his commentary on Genesis 2, traditional kind of commentary from years and years ago, says she's taken as his rib, and shows like kind of the equality of women in worth and value to men. She's not taken out of his head to lord over him. She's not taken from his feet to be trampled on by him. She's taken out of his rib as like a co-equal image bearer with God, which I think is a good sort of image there as it relates to the equality of male and female as image bearers of God. And then you see Adam in Genesis 3. He's passive. He kind of abdicates his responsibility as the serpent is talking to Eve. And then it actually says after she eats of the fruit that she gives it to her husband who is there with her. So it's not like he was just gone. He was beside her. And that abdication, I think, is what's in view in these New Testament passages talking about the fall, and the 1 Timothy 2 and other places where you see the usurpation of the created order and Adam kind of abdicating that responsibility for his wife and in his home and in those kind of ways. So that's a problem. And then we have the battle of the sexes in Genesis 3 that begins, right? And specifically in the curse that God says to Adam, to Eve, your desire will be for your husband, but he will lord it over you, right? Genesis 3. So that lording over, that sort of domineering, that violent, chauvinistic, whatever you want to call it. We could use any of those words for it, but that domineering is not biblical and is a part of the curse. So the Bible speaks of it in terms of the curse. Ephesians 5 is the flipping of that to call men to follow Christ in laying down their lives, self-sacrificially caring for their wives, rather than domineering and lording it over them. And so the two isms, and Luke, one of our pastors here on staff, and I were talking about this yesterday, and we were just talking about different isms, and he's like, every ism is a problem. Every ism is not good, right? It's all based on sin, but feminism, chauvinism, both equally bad, right? And that I think what you see in culture is you see in our culture today, in American culture, particularly Western culture, you see feminism massively, right? And then you see, and this is what, Cody, the question there, and I didn't see this 20 years ago, maybe I just wasn't more aware of it, or social media has blown this up, but I feel like feminism's growth in Western culture, chauvinism, the Andrew Tate style stuff, is just the response to feminism, right? And so it's bad, it's horrible, but that's the curse. That's the desire will be for your husband, he will lord it over you, right? And so you see that on both sides of the equation in our culture. And I think as men, we're supposed to live like Christ. We're supposed to be self-sacrificial. We're not to domineer. We should lead the way like Christ in serving and humility, and set the tone in that regard. So that, to me, that's biblical manhood, is the fact that men and women are different. And as a man, you have this responsibility being born a male, right? Being born a man. And your responsibility is to be self-sacrificial and to lead the way in service and that sort of way to be like Christ. And that's his, and Tyler, you mentioned parenting and those other things, but that would be as manly as you can get, right? Would be utilizing what God has created in you and given you as a man to be that way, right? And to lead that way, to serve that way, to care that way, that would be ultimately manhood. I think of the New Testament, I think of like Titus 2, where older men are supposed to be dignified, to know the word, to be those ways, and younger men are supposed to be self-controlled. And I think there's this thing about testosterone that I just love, that the only Titus 2, which has all these instructions for older men, older women, and younger women, how they're to operate. The one instruction for Titus to young men is urge the young men to be self-controlled. It's like, talk about just like testosterone, right? Where yeah, dude, you just figure out how to be self-controlled. That's going to be your freaking job for the next, 20 years until you grow into a man, is like, be self-controlled, right? And so I think, yeah, and what you see in the chauvinistic stuff is that lack of self-control, that just rampant, testosterone, and really kind of bowing the knee to that idea. Being a man means taking whatever you want, and those kinds of things, which is the opposite of what true manhood as God created it would be.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind is like strength because of love or out of love.
Okay.
And so like think of 1 Corinthians 16, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. And then the following verse is, let all that you do be done in love.
That's great. And
you think about that, in that, like, what does Ephesians 5 say? Like, love, like husbands love your wife as Christ loved the church. Like what more a picture of strength than Jesus on the cross? And that's not a strength that it's like, look how much I can bench press, or like, look how angry I can get, or look how much I can assert my will. But like you said, it's that self-sacrificial thing. And so, yeah, I just like, you even asked like, how much in the narrative are you on that? And I was like, I just try to like stay away from it, stay away from even the conversation as much as possible, just because I find it so frustrating when it's like, and you see it in Christian circles too, not just guys like Andrew Tate, which I don't even think he wouldn't say he's a Christian, right?
No, I don't.
Like,
well,
I mean, he doesn't act like
Cody?
one for sure.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't. Yeah, I don't know what I don't follow him close, but he's one of these influencers in that world, and I almost feel like he at times talks about Christianity or talks about the thing. And I mean, dude, the dude's like a serial fornicator and all sorts of craziness. But it's like and he's very like overt about that kind of stuff. But I know Jordan Peterson's not a Christian, at least yet. He feels like he's getting there from what I've seen in recent years. But he was
raised Romanian Orthodox.
Who was Tate?
Tate, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, all that to say, like, like you see this in Christian circles. Like I mentioned my buddy, but that's just a random dude. But like you see it in certain circles where it's like, oh, this is what masculinity looks like, and it's, oh, he can't even grow a beard. It's like,
sure.
there's like or the voice thing, or the Paul Tripp You think the Apostle Paul would wear this cardigan?
Or the whiskey you drink or the this or whatever, right? Like all those sort of external trappings that are more based on kind of stereotypes and whatever. And yeah.
And so I just have such a small amount of patience for that. Yeah. It's just like, oh, that's so ridiculous. Like that it makes me even not want to talk about masculinity. You know what I mean? Which I know. I mean, the Bible talks about.
Shutting down. I'm shutting down.
So, but I think, and so I don't know. That's what I think it looks like, and you can do that while wearing a scarf, or while.
I thought you were going to say skirt when you were going there, scarf, and I was going to be like, if we're talking in Scotland or something, okay, but we got to have limits here, dude.
No, but like, I mean, you can do that while like wearing hipster glasses like Paul Tripp, or while having a, like what people would call an effeminate sounding voice, like people that are in positions that I don't know, I'm not going to say names, but like, so. I don't know.
Oh, dude. It's cracking me up. Our culture is so stupid. I think in these ways, in the sense of like, in my head right now is we don't say stupid, but because we don't at home. But I think like the man, it's so ridiculous. Our culture is on these things so backward and mixed up. But it's like But the sad thing and the grieving thing about it is there's just been so many generations, and this isn't recent. This is going back to the Garden of Eden. The depravity of mankind and sin nature and grief and pain from sin. And I think as Christians, I don't know, to know where these things are at within our culture. That's even why we talk about something like this today, and to make sure that we're taking our cue not from an influencer or the latest fad or the latest viral tweet, but from the scriptures, to truly go to the scriptures and say, what is the final? I like that you brought up that act like men verse, because, there's obviously something in view there, and it's talking about this strength, and it's talking about this fortitude and love and driven by those things, not sinfully, but driven by those things in a godly way. And I think, dude, self-sacrifice is a big thing for that, which is called to all Christians. But I think, again, men lead the way in that, right? Lead the way. And leading is not demanding that people follow you. That would be domineering. Leading is to the best of your capability on a day-by-day way, building a character and maturity in Christ that is fearless to courageously engage through faith the mission of God around you, and for those, not just with those, but for those that the Lord has put within your path. Family, of course, but beyond that, your church family and everyone else. So yeah, anyway.
Right on.
There it is.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Podcast@toBeTheChurch.com is a place you can send questions, or you can put them right in the YouTube comments if you're watching on there. But yeah, maybe Ben will be back next week, and we will see you then. Have a great weekend.